presentation picks up a part of the results, but obviously in 20 minutes it's not feasible to convey everything what has been done in the project. So I pick up let's say the generic, more generalizable result, or the insights learned. Now, the project started after we have suggested this project after we have completed the XeroHor project. XeroHor was a coordination action funded under the Framework Program 7 by the European Commission, and it simply put together all the knowledge, available knowledge about natural causes, economic, social impacts of droughts, and in the management measures and policies. It was a coordination action, so there was no space for looking to specific, doing specific research. So because we have found out there is very little knowledge available in Europe about what are the impacts of drought and water scarcity more in general, we have suggested this project as a small explorative project, looking into the issues which are on the interface between natural hazard management and climate adaptation. So what we were trying to do in this project was to collect evidence about what is the impact for specific events. We have chosen some specific events in different river basin in Europe. I will show that in a few minutes, and try to collect all the available evidence about the impact and try to fill the gap as far as this was possible. Now, let me start with the European policy on drought and water scarcity. I guess you are all very familiar with that. I used to say the drought policy in Europe is a sort of Cinderella among the other pieces of environmental policies. There is a widely held belief that the Water Framework Directive is not fully equipped to address the issue of drought and water scarcity, and this has led also to a communication from European Commission in 2007 identifying some actions that can be taken at the European level, while at the same time European Parliament called several times upon the Commission to submit a legislation which is in nature similar to the directive on floods, the 2060 EC directive. But so far there seemed to be very little support of yet another piece of directive for the drought and water scarcity. Now, the communication in 2007 identified 7 policy areas through which perhaps the impacts of droughts in Europe might be reduced. There has been last year a review of what has been achieved in those 7 policy fields, and that was the review of the, let's say, of the achievements triggered by the communication was formally a part of the blueprint for safeguarding Europe's water. Now, the results were very, let's say, disappointing. The Commission admitted that the communication has not fully achieved its goal. There was little progress in several of those 7 policy fields or areas. We have contributed also to the review and similar assignments looking into water scarcity and droughts in Europe, drawing partly also on the Water to Adapt project and the case study research, which I would perhaps highlight as an interesting, side or outreach activity of the project. A part of the environmental legislation, and I guess again you are very familiar with the EU 2020 strategy, there is a European policy or European initiative or European vision, let's call it vision, for smart, sustainable, inclusive growth. And the 2011 communication on this initiative, especially the roadmap to the resource efficient Europe, has highlighted the where we want to go in Europe. We want to achieve a competitive, inclusive, and sustainable growth, and to this end, the likely impact of climate change have to be addressed early on, and water resource management in general, and proper mitigation of drought risk and preparedness to drought spells are important cornerstones of it. Now, if you look at the milestone Europe has envisaged for river basin management, it looks as though this milestone to be achieved by 2020 will not be reached, simply because the objectives of the Water Framework Directive seem to be far more ambitious as it initially looked like. And we know already now that by 2015 almost a half of the river basin district in Europe will not reach a good ecological status. Now, one part of the underlying principles or
It seems we have lost a bit of sound there. Yaroslav, we cannot hear you at the moment. Okay. Yeah. Yaroslav, there seems to be some problem with your connection. He's now left the room. Okay. Apologies for the moment. It seems that Yaroslav has lost his connection to the meeting room. We have to wait for him to come back into the meeting room. This is where I should be playing you elevator music to keep you accompanied. There he is, just coming back now. Okay. Hello, Yaroslav. You're back into the meeting room. We lost your connection there for a moment. Yeah.
Was it only on my side, or
it seems you left the meeting room? You logged, yes. You seemed the only person who moved out.
So it really depends on the internet connection of my institution. I apologize for this. Recently,
we're back up and running now, so
we are experiencing some difficulties. Okay, so let me continue. So one of the underlying hypotheses of this project was that better water management can contribute to growth in Europe. and can also help to master the financial economic crisis in Europe. Definitely through reduced losses to drought, but also through better opportunities, business opportunities in areas where the water scarcity seriously limits the economic growth. The project was implemented in three, we would say, representative river basin districts. That was in Ebro, in Po River Basin District, and Weser. The choice was not completely casual. Both Ebro and Po are among the most important.
Your voice has gone again, Yaroslav.
In Spain and in Italy.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Is there again any issue with the... No. Okay. Weser, on the other hand...
You're back again now, Yaroslav. It's okay.
Okay. Weser, on the other hand, was classified as potentially water scarce. If you look at the water exploitation index used by European Environmental Agency, you will find that Weser is classified as water scarce in some periods of the year. Now, for the other studies we conducted for DG Environment and DG Climate.
Okay, apologies again. It seems that Yaroslav has lost the sound again. Yaroslav, can you hear us on this side? Okay.
Yes, well, I don't know what happens. It seems that I'm every now and then I am disconnected from the network, or our network does not work properly. Okay, let's go on and see whether we will be able to complete the presentation. Right. So all three river basins are important in Europe and important in the respective countries, and they are, all three of them are facing partly significant difficulties already now, or are set to face significant difficulties in the near future. As a part of the research design, we have picked up the research sites that or one urban, or say a city of at least 100,000 inhabitants, and a district which is more classified rather in a rural environment. So on this slide you can see the rural and urban sites we used for our research. It's Alava district in Ebro River Basin and Vittoria town, Trebbia River Basin or the Piacenza district in Italy, and Parma and Ferrara as the urban sites, Heidekreis in Germany, and Hanover City. Now all those cities are part of Eurostat urban survey, which make it easier perhaps to upscale the information we got from those urban environments. What does not, unfortunately, the Eurostat does not collect information about the water use. It collects a number.
Okay, Yaroslav, it seems we've lost the sound again. I do apologize to everybody for this interruptions on the sound. Hopefully we will get him back soon. He's moved out of the meeting room. Okay. Don't forget that if you do have any questions, feel free to type them. I now understand that you can all work the chat, as you're very quick to tell me that you've lost the sound, so that's good. I know you can then put questions in place. That'll be very good when we get Yaroslav back to respond to those questions. Here we go. Okay, Yaroslav, you're back in. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you at the moment.
On the other hand, I'm really sorry for this. All right. I'm waiting until the next slide is loaded. Can you see it properly? Okay. So now you are looking at the three river basins and the reset site within them, and see the level of urbanization. So the Eurostat, in collaboration with OECD, has developed a methodology how to classify the NUTS 3 level units. That means in Italy and in Spain, it's the level of provincial level. The units into three categories: predominantly urban, predominantly rural, and intermediate. As you can see, I hope you can distinguish research sites. They are, in most cases, they have been chosen from the areas which is classified as rural and urban, respectively. What you can also see on the next slide is the extent of the larger metropolitan areas, again identified and classified by Eurostat as such. And again, you can see that in all three river basins, the metropolitan area takes quite a large extent, and rural sites are, let's say, barriers or gaps that disconnect this larger metropolitan area. Like when you look at the Po River Basin, we have a metropolitan area which starts from Venice, goes up to Milan, and
okay, Yaroslav, we lost a bit of sound there again. Hopefully he will be back soon.
Yeah, I'm back in Germany as well, where the Heidekreis interrupts the larger metropolitan area, which comes from Berlin and continues up to the Hamburg. So this is to explain the choice, why we have chosen those areas and why we have focused on them. Now, the underlying hypothesis was that it makes difference. The impacts in rural environment are different from those experienced in the urban environment. In terms of drought events, we focused on drought which started in 1988 and lasted up to 1990 in Ebro River Basin District. In Po River Basin District, we look at...
I do apologize to everyone.
Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Can you please confirm?
Yes, I can certainly hear you. I'm not sure about everyone else, hopefully. Yeah.
So in Po River Basin, we had a prolonged drought that started in 2003, basically, and stopped in 2007. So the drought was of different intensity in this 5-year long period. In Weser River Basin District, we focus basically on the 2003 event, which was one of the worst drought in the recent history. Now, looking back at the time as we implemented the project, we realized that we have not included in the design the environmental damage of drought, because this project simply was designed for different purpose and was small to take into account all the impacts. But this shortcoming has been at least partly compensated by another IWRM-net funded project, Savada. Now, the economic and social impact of drought appears to be the highly relevant topic for the European environmental policies. That was a good, realization that we have really addressed the topic, which is one of the most important in Europe now. Now, the other another opportunity was of this project was to link the natural hazard policies to the climate adaptation. You might know that in 2013, in the next few months, European Commission is set to present the communication on how Europe is going to respond.
Seems that Yaroslav's back again.
So sometimes you don't hear me what I'm saying. I would really appreciate to have some feedbacks whenever
Every now and again.
If you cannot hear me, just let me know right now, because it appears everything fine on my screen. So this project wanted to adapt has
every now and again we do lose the sound.
Okay, shall I continue?
Yes, that's okay. We're back again now.
Okay. So this project provided also an opportunity to contribute heavily, or to propose a
Yes, unfortunately, Yaroslav, you lost the connection there. We will try and do everything we can to make sure that Yaroslav is back into the meeting room and we can get the sound back up and running a bit more continuous. Normally it doesn't take long for him to reconnect, but we shall ask him to speak to the technicians within FEAM in Venice. Now we can keep the sound. There we go. Just to answer your questions, Yaroslav is now back as a presenter, but yes, the text and the questions that you are writing, Yaroslav can see them directly.
And okay, I'm back again.
You're also logged in. Yes, you're logged in twice.
Okay. Right. So let me go for it again. Now I have lost the opportunity to switch the slides. Probably I'm not the presenter.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm not going to. I still hear a strong echo. Is it perhaps? Okay. Let's see this. Okay. Now it disappeared. I'm not going to take you through all the assessment in all case studies. I pick up some interesting generic result from this project, but you will be able to trace down what has been done in the report you will receive. Now, at the European level, we have the only estimates of economic losses available comes from a survey. So a questionnaire was sent back in 2006 and 2007 by DG Environment to all member states, and they have approximated the losses. And the sum of these self-reported losses was presented as the European, losses to droughts. This is not very satisfactory a bit of information and knowledge. So we have proposed the methodologies and show how the significant drought events could be revisited, and the losses could.
Okay, Yaroslav, we've lost sound for quite some time there. He's also left the meeting room. Unfortunately, the connection is not very good this afternoon from Venice. We can keep trying. Hopefully he will come back soon. Yeah. He's back in the meeting room. Hopefully we can hear you again soon, Yaroslav.
Okay, I'm back. I think this is a sort of fate, destiny of the webinars. You are sometimes disconnected and you perhaps lose the track. I'm really sorry for this. If it's caused on our side, I apologize for the interruptions. Now, I was saying that it doesn't matter. It's not the primary objective of any economic assessment to come up with on precise numbers. It's rather what you learn by doing the assessment, what is more useful, or what is the thing you are looking for. So assessment of the economic cost of drought is very useful for identifying the unsustainable practices in water management, the cumbersome management arrangements, and so on. Then not all losses are easily attributable to the natural hazard, in this case drought. We have come up with an assessment of the approximate losses in energy, in agriculture, and in residential water supply.
Sadly, Yaroslav, I've lost the sound. I'm not sure what it's like for the rest of the speakers. Sorry, the rest of the delegates.
Can you hear me now?
We have another 10 minutes to go. What may be worth is we can carry on, but then we'll try and reschedule this presentation for later on in the year. It's certainly easy enough to set up, that we try and hold repeat it. We'll do a repeat session where we can work on the connection, and hopefully will be less disturbance. But we'll try again for a little bit longer. Okay.
Okay, so I will try to be very brief now. The cost of drought tend to be underestimated. It's easy to show. European Environmental Agency has proposed to develop an European flood impact database. I'm leading this task, proposing perhaps what kind of events should be addressed in the first place. I believe strongly that the same should be done also for the drought, as the, let's say, a pool of interesting knowledge for Europe, where and how to intervene in order to reduce the losses to the drought and inefficient water management. Now, interesting interesting part of our analysis was to what extent the climate adaptation measures and policies in water field can contribute to stimulate the creation of new jobs or green jobs. There is up to now there is a really gap in the estimates. There's a mounting evidence about the climate mitigation measures and policies in these terms, how they can contribute to creation new jobs, but in terms of adaptation, there is a significant lack of knowledge, and we have shown in our analysis it's not really only the climate adaptation, but it's the labor policies together with climate adaptation may lead to may steer the economic transformation that might produce more and better quality of jobs. Now, social effect of droughts are largely unaccounted for in Europe. They are very well known in other continents, especially in Australia. We have found it very difficult to disentangle the social impacts of drought from the other compounding factors. For example, the economic and financial downturn in Europe experienced from 2006 and 2007. From our analysis there, we suggest that the rural-urban typology used by Eurostat should be changed, should be rethought, and it should take into account not only the density of the population, but really the income and added value generated across the regions. That makes perhaps the regions more comparable, where the level of detail, simply at the European level, is not sufficient to really tease out what is urban, what is more rural. In the urban context, we shifted our focus on the reliability of water service provision, which we think is one perhaps the most important issue to focus on, as the effect of climate change becomes more pronounced. The climate sensitive urban design contains a number of the principles which should be taken into account in the larger or medium to larger urban centers. At the European level, as a part of the monitoring of 2020 strategy, the Eurostat is collecting the information about people at risk of poverty or social exclusion. Several of the indicators which underline this index also refer to indirectly refer to water supply and the ability to pay for water supply service. Unfortunately, the indicators in this index, the indicators which refer to the water supply, are perhaps not given enough weight, and the information is only collected at the higher level. So one of our recommendations in the final report is that the water supply becomes a higher, well, becomes more important. Now, there are a number of cases where water scarcity and drought, the social effects of water scarcity and drought, manifest itself through social disobedience and unrest, or not really as a cause, but as an amplifying drivers. We have explored this issue on a number of cases in Italy and elsewhere. Obviously these effects are not translated into economic measures of welfare, nor does it make sense to, but it's still perhaps very important to highlight this, especially in the connection of a coincidence of strict environmental legislation as far as the ecological flow is regarded, with the drought spell as we experienced in 2007. Now, what we have outlined as the resilience framework for drought and water scarcity is split into several, let's say, steps. The first is environment and enabling environment. That includes the good environment, good water governance, and the arrangements which helps to reach a bottom-up solution to how to allocate the already compromised water resources during the droughts. There are very interesting examples from Spain and from Italy, how the drought might be managed through the drought steering committees, which are basically a voluntary arrangements between the stakeholders that enable on the short term to reallocate the water that is left and reduce so the damage. Unfortunately, there are other governance indicators or structural characteristic that prevents similar arrangements to take place. The second step is recognition of ecosystem services and the preservation of healthy river ecosystem. In medium to long term, that also includes taking into account what is the capacity, retention capacity of the river basin in terms of snowpacks and glaciers. Especially in drought, we have found out that snowpacks and glaciers perform a very, very important water regulation function, which we are going to lose to as the effect of climate change becomes more pronounced. To compensate for this service, you would have to increase the retention, human-made retention capacity, which is very difficult to obtain. A better management of the existing retention capacity might help to some extent. And finally, the next level is all the policies and measures meant to improve the efficiency of water use and application, and that includes also the economic policy instruments on which we focus heavily in another project funded by European Commission, the EPI Water. We have been able to explore the likely effects of water tariffs in domestic water use and agriculture water pricing in our case studies with various level of success, let's say. In some places, the water tariffs for domestic uses, the potential has already been exploited, and the tariffs do not care a huge potential for water conservation. Rather, they are designed and implemented to ensure a sustainable investment in water supply provision and reliable service. Huge potential is still there in the agriculture field, in the application, but taking into account also that any reform of agriculture will also translate into reform of the landscape, or in the changes of the landscape. If we have now 11,000 kilometers of main irrigation infrastructure in Po River Basin, if we try to reduce the water losses to evaporation or percolation to the aquifer, and then we are also taking on board changes to the land use and land cover in the river basin. So this is a very quick overview about the project. I realized that through the interaction, I have not been able to do justice to this project. I'm more than happy to repeat the talk and the presentation whenever the connection will be more reliable.
Okay, thank you very much, Yaroslav. Yeah, that's perhaps something we will discuss and try and arrange. So we try again. It's certainly easy enough for us to set up. We've now arrived at the time. So if people need to leave, then we understand. But now we'll certainly open it out for questions. And for those who are willing to stay, I think we can try and open it out. So if you have a microphone and you know it's set up working, we will allow you to try and have a quick chat and speak. I think for those of you who patiently sat through, we can certainly try and do that. And yes, as you noticed, there are a number of applauses going on there on the right-hand side, so thank you very much for that. Okay, now there are questions arising. There's a question there from Sarah. Sarah raised her hand.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you very much for the question.
And so if you wish to raise the question.
I read the question.
She's also written on the chat, if you can read that, Yaroslav.
Exactly. The question is whether, to what extent we have addressed the innovation for water management and climate adaptation. Now, what we learn, we have for our representative river basin, we have constructed also the basically we analyze the existing droughts, look into what is the current water availability, what will be the future water availability, let's say by 2030, 2040, and what is the gap in between. We have also addressed the scenarios of future water demand. And now, if I correctly interpret your question, we have also taken into account the technological innovation in reducing water demand in different sectors. This has been taken into account in the scenarios. One important perhaps innovation we looked into is let me come back to your question. Do you mean more the technological innovation or innovation in governance? Sarah?
You have your microphone enabled, Sarah, if you wish to speak, or you can type the question, confirmation. At the moment, we cannot hear you, unfortunately. Whilst you're typing the question, if I can, I have a point to make as well, but come back to that. You mentioned rural urban links and river basin district. This seems to be quite crucial with a lot of links between town and country planning and also river basin districts, that trying to create environmental environmental boundaries with administrative boundaries. It's difficult within the planning system to get them to mesh together, and that seemed quite clear there. Could you expand a little bit on that, on your experience of within the planning systems of river basin districts, the difficulties you found with working with job creation and political boundaries?
Well, the traditional distinction relies on the density of population and perhaps the importance of agriculture. Now, what we have found is that as the agriculture sector is undergoing significant changes, the rural, what you would think of according to the traditional distinction, a rural population is less and less dependent on agriculture. So there is this decoupling of the rural livelihood from agriculture, and at the same time the agriculture farms are becoming more and more professionally based, and let's say the family farm model is reduced or disappearing.
Okay.
What we have found is that it's It's why the agricultural sector is very resilient to drought up to certain, perhaps to certain thresholds. Uh, the traditional, well, the way of living or social, the communities are less impacted by droughts. The impacts comes through perhaps more labor in the agriculture sector, but on the income side, because of the common agricultural policies, which in some sense act as an insurance against income losses, roughly half of the income of the farmers comes from the payments through the European agriculture policy. The drought does not translate into a similar situation which we can observe in other OECD countries like in Australia, where the income is seriously compromised by drought.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that Sarah's put a few bit more detail on the question she posed. We'll come back to that.
Okay, innovation. We looked into the innovative responses of river basin authorities and the other stakeholders institutions. I mentioned the Drought Steering Committee. This is let me explain it a little bit more in depth. In Italy, we have a quite powerful regulatory tool, and it's declaration of state of emergency. Whenever the state of emergency is declared, you have not, or you had in the past, you had not only the access to large, financial means to tackle the emergency, but the emergency declaration also suspend for certain time all the other legislations and regulations. So it's very interesting. It's a very important tool that enables the authorities and civil protection agency to respond quickly to any kind of emergency. Now, during the period we have analyzed between 2003 and 2007, there have been 3 declarations of state of emergency, and the emergency lasted for 21 months, so more than 1 year. That only highlights the importance. But despite the availability, let's say, of this powerful regulatory tool, how to respond to the emergencies, the first attempt has been always to bring the stakeholders together and discuss the issues. Now, the state of the emergency instrument was always back in the room. I mean, if the stakeholders could not agree what should be done, then obviously the regulation would follow. In some cases, the voluntary agreement were successful up to certain amount, up to a certain moment, and beyond that, the only feasible mean that remained was actually the declaration of state of emergency and then the adequate response. So we have found a number of ways through which the stakeholders were able to agree on what should be done without relying on this powerful regulatory tool. This is in terms of governance. We have found many shortcomings in governance, not only in Italy, Spain, and Germany. This is goes hand in hand with what has been identified by OECD back in 2010, when they made a review of water governance in Europe. I could go on and highlight perhaps the specific feature of water governance in different countries to make it clear, but this is perhaps goes beyond your question.
I noticed that you mentioned there in Italy. Were there similar experiences found in Germany as well on the case studies that you did in terms of governance and instruments? My understanding of the question is that we're looking for how the drought situations and times of crisis cause people or force people to be innovative in finding solutions for river restoration or green technologies, as Sarah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Ebro and Po river basins are very similar in number of reasons, for number of reasons. For the importance, for the first water availability, they are not what you would consider really water scarce regions. They are both water abundant regions. The water scarcity comes into play in some seasons or some period of time, but basically because of the well, not sufficient preparedness to such drought spells. The drought comes as a surprise in both river basins. Germany is a little bit different. Germany is abundant water resources throughout the year. The 2003 drought, was basically agricultural drought. The main impacts were felt in agricultural sector, but were constrained in the magnitude. There is an obvious adaptation strategy in Germany through the irrigation, which is far less represented in the Weser River Basin than in the other two river basins situated in the Mediterranean. So let's say the 2003 drought in Germany was a wake-up call for Germany. The authorities have realized that the drought might become similar drought spells as in 2003 might become more frequent with the climate change, and it makes sense for them to invest in the most obvious way how to you know to improve the irrigation infrastructure. Why in Ebro or in Italy the infrastructure is already there but needs to be updated and needs to be perhaps better managed.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Yaroslav. We've now reached 4 o'clock, so I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to Yaroslav for the presentation. I hope it's been interesting for you, the delegates. I would also like to say thank you to you all for turning up and being patient through technical issues. It is one of the difficulties with webinars using online technology, but it also means that we can listen to presentations from the leading scientists through the Scientific Coordination Project without having to leave our desks, which I do find is very beneficial. So thank you all very much for turning up, and I hope you have a very good weekend. The 28th of March is when the next webinar will be, and that's the Esawadi project. You will be able to find details on the IWRM-net website. Okay, that's all from us, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for excellent moderation, and thank you to everybody for being with us. And as I said before, I will be more than happy to repeat this talk once the technical difficulties have been settled.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Yaroslav. Okay, bye-bye to everybody.